Hello, this is Mrs. Sotheby, and you're joining Community Conversations in Room 5.
Hello, this is Graham and Joey C. Today we're going to talk to Mrs. Pastor, my mom.
Hi.
What's your job?
My job is I am the acting chief of police in a town called Brookline, Massachusetts, which is about 15 miles from here, next to Boston.
What do you do when you're at work?
That's a great question. Every day I get to do something a little bit different. I can tell you that today I got to work at 7 o'clock in the morning when you were just waking up probably. And I got to talk to the group of officers that was getting ready to start their day. And I listened to the lieutenant tell them what area of town they were going to work in. And then we got to give out some awards for police officers who did really great work in 2022.
What part of your job do you find most interesting?
That's a great question. There are a lot of things that I find interesting about my job. I get to help people solve lots of different kinds of problems, little problems and big problems. And I really like to help people.
What made you want to do your job?
You guys have good questions. I always knew when I was growing up that I wanted to do a job where I could go to work and help people. And I grew up in Brookline, which is the town where I work. And when I went to college, I actually thought that I wanted to be a doctor. So I started studying biology and chemistry, and I took a few classes in fields like psychology and sociology. And those are classes that kind of teach you about people and how they think and how they work together. And I got really interested in that. And when I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a job. But my oldest brother, John, was a police officer, and he suggested that maybe I try it. And I almost didn't really think about it because I knew a lot of police officers, but I didn't know any that were women. So what my brother John did is that he brought me out with some of the people he thought were really good police officers, and a bunch of them were women. So he let me meet them, and I thought, maybe this is something I could do. And they really liked their jobs, and I really liked my job.
How does your job help the community?
Great question. I'm not going to ask you if you've ever called 911, but do you want to tell me if you know what 911 is for? When would you call 911?
When it's an emergency.
Perfect. So one of the ways that me and my coworkers help the community is responding to people when they have emergencies, when they feel like they're in danger or somebody they love is in trouble. We get all different kinds of calls for all different kinds of emergencies, and we get to help out.
How is teamwork important at your job?
Oh, teamwork is so important to police officers. And as the chief of police, it kind of feels like I'm the captain of the best team in Brookline. I don't ever have to work by myself. I have all these things on my belt, a lot of different tools that might look cool, but the most important thing that I have is this police radio. And I can pass it around when we're done. But if I have a problem that I can't solve by myself, I get on my radio and I can talk to 135 police officers in Brookline. And if that's not enough, I can talk to almost 2,000 police officers in the city of Boston next door. And if that still doesn't work, I can even talk to the state police, or even out here, if I'm driving out to Walpole and there's an emergency, I can talk to the Walpole Police Department. So everybody's part of the same team trying to help others in the community who are in a little bit of trouble.
Can you share an interesting story from your job?
Oh boy, I can. I've been a police officer for about 23 years, so I have a lot of interesting stories. But there was a time about 10 years ago, and I was working as a street sergeant, so it's like being the boss of the police officers out on the street, not like in the office where I am now. And we got a call that there was a black bear running around the city, and he was on busy streets, and he was going through people's trash, and when he was doing that, we just kind of left him alone. But it was overnight that he was running around, and then it was early in the morning, and he wandered onto the school grounds of a preschool, and school was getting ready to start. So we couldn't have a bear walking around when there were little kids, right? So everybody made sure we knew where he was, and then he climbed up into a tree. And so the kids were coming to school, the bear was in the tree, we didn't know what we were going to do, but to get back to your question about teamwork, we called our friends who work for the environmental police, and they came out to help us. So the bear was in the tree, the environmental police had a special kind of medicine that they could give to the bear while he was up there. And then a bunch of us stood under the tree with a giant net. So he gave the bear some medicine, the bear fell asleep, he fell out of the tree, and we all caught him in a blanket. And then we put him in the back of the truck that was filled with ice, and they drove him back to Western Massachusetts to hopefully find his family. And everybody stayed safe.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello,